I did, and what he said is what the powers have done is condemned Afghanistan to eternal violence and conflict.
Yes, it looks like it's going to be horrible.
They're pulling out, and this side is not going to agree to relent, and the Soviets are going to see what they would call a necessity to keep arming the other side. This is where you get into a test, if you will, of Gorbachev's sincerity and Bush's, kinder, gentler, goodness in the nation. Do they really mean it? They're trying to convince the world that the Cold War is winding down. Doonesbury's already told us the Cold War is over. It isn't. Now the danger, of course, is that people are so eager, craving for hope and craving for peace. It doesn't take much. As dynamic as the peace movement arguably is in the United States and Europe, for example, it sure doesn't take much for a president to get up there and just 3 words. Kinder, gentler, and then the goodness and greatness, 4 words. And people, oh wow, phew,
Yeah. Whereas the actual policies are to keep violence and covert operations and secret wars going. So your point about the U.S. intervention in Afghanistan, rather than negotiating a peaceful settlement or negotiating some sort of a governmental structure, we just supported any forces whatsoever to create chaos in the region to humiliate the Soviet Union. That was the goal and continues to be the goal of the Bush administration, that continues to fund the Afghan rebels to make sure there's more murder, chaos, etc. there. What does Bush, how can he justify continuing to support the Afghan rebels now that the Soviet Union has pulled out? There's no longer a foreign oppressor there.
Well, this is just classic old Cold War, the elephants fighting, and the grass getting trampled. We haven't had our victory over there yet. I'm putting it in their terms, in Bush's terms, the CIA's terms. It is in the process of happening. We haven't taken Kabul yet. We haven't installed any kind of a government other than what the Soviets left behind. And so they're pressing ahead. And it's going to be very much in Bush's interest to try to get them to moderate the violence and the bloodiness of the revolution. The last great successful revolution from the other side was the Sandinistas, and they abolished the death sentence. The thing that's happening now with the U.S. forces, U.S.-backed forces, as they say, in Afghanistan apparently, is just utter atrocities when they take a city and then they lose it, perhaps. There are crates full of dismembered bodies, meat stuck in crates of hundreds of bodies left behind. Horror beyond comprehension.
Perpetrated by the rebels?
By the U.S.-backed forces, the different ones.
But there's different ones. There's no one force that the U.S. expects will take over.
No, the U.S. is working very hard, I am sure, to try to get its...
So they have some secret strategy of some forces that they hope will take over.
Absolutely. They hope to take the capital and establish a government and then reinforce that government as it dominates the others and establishes some kind of peace in the country. The process is going to be extremely bloody. And the U.S. will be doing its very best with the U.S. media, probably not giving us the vivid clippings of the horrors, as they're happening, just as they're not doing it in El Salvador or Guatemala today.
But couldn't there be an embarrassment for the U.S. if it turns out to be a bloodbath, that the U.S.-supported rebels turn out to be barbaric and there's atrocities committed everywhere?
Well, there is a bloodbath happening right now, and it's just not being run in our media.
The media,
we're not being told about it.
The U.S. and the CIA have done this continually through the years.
That's absolutely
in South
right.
Vietnam, in Iran with the Shah, in El Salvador.
With different degrees.
Bloodbaths all the time.
And with different degrees of collusion from the press. And in Central America, for example, in '81, when Reagan was first plunging in, the media, they had crews all over Nicaragua. They had permanent offices set up for all the biggies in the Intercontinental Hotel. And then after the Falkland Islands, they made a decision and didn't send them back. The stuff was running on the evening news every day, the horror stories and visual imagery, and they shut it off as the media bought into Reagan's Contra program. and you know, the Office of Public Diplomacy and the painting the white hats, as they put it, on the Contras and the black hats on the Sandinistas, and the media, the Washington Post, the biggies cooperating. And they're clearly cooperating in Afghanistan. Otherwise, we would be having much more graphic footage and graphic explanations of what's happening in Afghanistan right now today. And it's going to get worse for the, for the next year.
They call them the freedom fighters, and that's it.
But there's been nothing on U.S. support of any specific groups or what the effects of supporting these groups are.
See, this is exactly what I'm saying. This is the biggest one in the history of the CIA, and there's been nothing about it. And part of the reason is it's been a full bipartisan. The Contra program was public, and there was debate on it, and at times it was voted down. It were close votes.
There were serious differences.
In the Afghani, it's virtually unanimous. Both sides of the House and the Congress or the Senate are fully behind it, and so there has, and the administration